tools can we harness to unlock our potential? I'm Kate Save. The Inspired CEO starts now. Welcome to The Inspired CEO, where each episode we explore the innovative wellness practices that are driving success and longevity in the modern business world. In this episode, we sit down with Shannah Kennedy. With over 20 years of expertise, Shannah is known as an Australian powerhouse life coach whose mission is to equip individuals with a simple yet powerful approach. So thank you for joining us today, Shannah.
Thanks, Kate.
Now, you've got an incredible story. I would love to hear about your career and then when you did your pivot change to become a life coach. So what moment did you decide that where you were working was not the place that you wanted to be for the rest of your career?
Well, I married my job.
Yes.
I absolutely loved my job in corporate sport, doing contracts for athletes and their sponsorships and following them around to their sporting events. So I was very Jerry Maguire.
Yes.
And it was really exciting. But I didn't have any boundaries and I didn't have any self-care strategies or health. And this is, 25 years ago and nobody really talked about any of that. And it did cost me my health. I did get chronic fatigue syndrome. I did have to take a year off to recover from full burnout. And it was actually in that time that I got myself a coach, and nobody had ever got themselves a coach.
Yeah.
But because I'd been in the sporting world, every athlete has multiple coaches, and I was like, oh, why don't I have a coach?
Yeah.
So I actually got myself a coach, and as an everyday citizen, and it was the most incredible thing. So I had support, we set goals. Even though I knew how to do all of that, it was like I needed a cheerleader.
And so tell me about developing chronic fatigue. What were the symptoms? How long did you go before you burnt out? And when did you know enough was enough?
Well, you get lots of symptoms. You can't sleep properly, you get headaches, you have fatigue, you have that feeling when you know that you shouldn't go to that dinner, but you go anyway.
Yes.
You just push. And I was really great at pushing. I was a master of push, and I would just park my health. I would park all of those symptoms and irritations, and all of a sudden I couldn't concentrate properly, push it to the side and keep working until one day I actually couldn't get up.
You couldn't get up?
It was like I had the worst hangover you've ever had, but I didn't drink any alcohol. So then nobody knew it was really chronic fatigue. So they had to go through, do you have lupus? Do you have MS? What disease do you have? And then when it was all ruled out, they said you've got chronic fatigue. So there was no one talking about it. It was all a mystery. And that's why I had to unpack all of my old habits with a coach of, no self-care, and working hard was a badge of honour, and re-establish myself. And that actually was the pivot moment, because I thought about athletes, and I'd watched a lot of athletes retire in their 20s.
Really?
And they didn't know who they were without their sport. And I too didn't know who I was without my job.
And you were in your 20s at this stage?
In my late 20s.
Yes.
And I thought, no, I am my job. I'm great at my job. I'm a sponsorship manager and I've got 100 athletes. And it was very, not a real type of job, I would say. It's very glamorous. So I decided to study life coaching, and I think I was the first in Melbourne to go through the International Coaching Academy course for 3 years. And I opened my practice 20 years ago to coach athletes into retirement, and that's how it all started. And then it turned corporate, and then it just turned into everybody, at some stage in their life needs to know what their plan is, that incorporates their life and their business and their health and their relationships, and see the whole picture, because then we've got incredible perspective.
Yes, and I love one of the things, I have read your books where you talk about actually manifesting and having a plan, because without a plan, who knows what's going to happen next, and you need to drive your life in a particular direction. So how do you know that, or when did you know that you got that right in the coaching?
Well, I think you need a map, and it was very clear that if you're a high-performing human or an athlete, you have your Olympic plan, 4-year plan, maybe 2 Olympic plans. So everybody needs a roadmap, but not many people do that for themselves. And we're all athletes. We're athletes of life. We're athletes of a business, and we should be having a very detailed high performance plan so that we don't burn out.
So you'd been exposed to seeing these plans for athletes. So it was a natural transition for you to go, well, I'm going to get a coach, I'm going to write a plan, and then help other people write their own plans.
Exactly. Yeah. And so a lot of people thought it was quite crazy in the beginning, because they're like, oh no, but they're athletes and we're not. And I'm like, no, we're all athletes of life, and we're all running a marathon every day, really, it feels like. So I think every human on the planet should have a personal plan that helps them achieve their goals, but also avoid burnout at the same time.
So what is that starting point? How can people get started? So the majority of people would not have a plan. So how do they, you know, if they're listening today and they want to get started, where do they start?
I always say, how old will you be in 10 years' time?
Okay.
So you've got that little figure in your head, and then maybe how old will your parents be and your children's be in 10 years' time?
Oh, that's a scary thought,
or your dog, you know, how old will your dog be?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you've got a different landscape in your head. And it's, what are you doing today to serve that? And what experiences do you want in that 10 years? How do you want to feel along the way, health-wise, mental health, physical health, emotional health, spiritual health?
Oh, so not just that final point, but how you want to feel along the way, because that's a very different perspective to where do you want to be, because a lot of people rush through life trying to get to the end, forgetting about that experience.
I would say, how do you want to feel comes first.
Yeah.
And then where would you like to be financially, and what life experiences would you like along the way? And all of a sudden you've got a map, and the brain actually feels supported. It feels excited. It feels motivated. It's, I've got something to follow and work for and make decisions for. But without that, imagine if you didn't have any of that, you're just existing. So it is so powerful and so important, and I'm so passionate, and that's why I wrote the life plan. And it was really to bring life skills and these high performance, life, well-being, happiness habits to people's lives.
And I think no one out there who runs a business would run the business without a plan. However, this concept of a life plan is very unfamiliar and very new for people, but it makes perfect sense, because you wouldn't run your business without knowing what your milestones are and where you're heading and how you're going to get there.
Well, we all work for the business of self, you know, first. So the business that you work for, or the business you've created for yourself, has to serve the business of life. Because overarchingly, when you're doing a eulogy, no one talks about your business.
That's right.
They talk about your life. And we need to make sure we know who we are without our job, who we are, where we're going, and how we're going to get there.
And how would you describe that role as a life coach as well? Because I think that's quite unfamiliar to people too. They, you know, years ago people wouldn't have known what a personal trainer is. Now they do now, and it's a very familiar concept. But a life coach is still a pretty new concept. Yeah,
it is still. I've been doing this for 20 years and it's still quite new. To do it properly. It's like having a personal trainer for your life, really, at the end of the day. So it's not a counsellor. We don't really go into the past. We don't delve into the past too much. We acknowledge it. But life coaching is really about moving forward.
Okay.
It's about, what are the habits, what are the skills, where do you sabotage yourself, what drains you, and let's make change for the future.
And that's where people struggle, don't they? They do the same old and they expect a different outcome. So that's a great way to look at it. And how much contact do you have with your life coach?
Once a month.
Okay.
Once a month, and we would set the plan up for the month, and then my clients, we have unlimited emailing as well, so there's a lot of touch point if they want it. But knowing that you have someone in your corner, knowing you've got someone to be accountable to, you've got someone giving you an enormous amount of resources, things to listen to, things to watch.
So it's like homework, really.
It is homework for your life. It's the same as business.
And there's something satisfying about ticking off things as well, and knowing that you're actually going somewhere, rather than ticking off the shopping list and you're putting things in the trolley, but really that's not going to change your life.
And that's the whole point is life becomes very exciting. Because you are doing things that you know are allowing you to evolve as a human, that are making you move forward in life, and you know why, because you know the experiences that you want, you know how you want to feel. So you're not just giving something up because you should. You know how you want to feel. There's a real purpose, and people, when they get the wording right, it becomes quite easy.
That makes sense. And I think a lot of people love lists. So this idea of the bucket list for your life, that what do you actually want to do on this journey? And I love that you talk about experiences, because life is a collection of experiences. And if we're not having those experiences, we're doing the same thing every day. What is in that eulogy?
Well, people often say, oh, you're so lucky because, you know, you're about to walk Tuscany or whatever it is. And I'm like, well, because they're experiences that I've built into the plan, so we can save for them, train for them, visualise them, get the vision board going. That's another thing that I do with a lot of people, is get everything out of your brain onto the wall and create vision.
Yes.
Because that's high performance.
Yeah.
But we can all be doing that for our life, and it's very, very exciting. So yeah, there's a lot to it.
What is on your vision board? So where do you see yourself going? What are your big dreams? And where are you going to take this company that you've created?
Well, it's 20 years old, and I think I'll do another 20.
Yes.
What I try to do is take a mini sabbatical, 6 months off every 10 years, so I'm nearly due for my 6 months off again. And then I come back for another 10 years and do the same thing, but keep evolving. So a lot of people now are coming to me in midlife, so that's 50.
Yes.
So 50 to 75, they don't have a midlife plan.
Yes.
They've created the business, they've had the children, they've got the house, the car, they've had the holidays, now what? So there is this huge void because we're not retiring at 60 anymore.
No, so they need to get this down on paper. They need to know where they're going next. So if people want to contact you, what is the best way to find you?
ShannahKennedy.com. There is unlimited resources there, and private coaching and keynote speaking.
Fantastic. So it sounds like everyone should get their life plan together. So thank you for joining me. And this is Ticker. We'll be right back.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.